You're listening to Speaking Side Mount, the podcast where we talk all things side mount diving, from equipment, skills, techniques, and side mount diving expeditions to interviews with some of the world's top side mount divers. Whether you're new to side mount, been side mount diving for years, or just want to know more, this is the place for all things side mount. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Let's get wet. Hey, welcome back to Speaking Side Mount. I'm Steve Davis. This premium episode is brought to you by X-Deep and the patrons of Speaking Side Mount. I'm extraordinarily grateful to both for their support. It makes all of this possible. It's great to be back giving you another episode, even if at the moment it's been really hard to get out diving. And while for me this has been due to an extraordinarily busy time with my other businesses, I know that many of you are also dry due to various pandemic-related lockdowns or restrictions. Wherever you are, I hope that you're doing and keeping well, and that Speaking Side Mount helps to pass the time until we can all get wet again. If you are diving, please reach out and let me know what's happening in your part of the world. There's nothing better than living vicariously through the exploits of others, I guess. Now, I'm really excited to share this episode 60 with you, featuring my chat with Tamara May. I first sighted Tamara on YouTube, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, as the star of an excellent side mount configuration and skills video shot in Mexico. The skills were of course excellent, but I was taken with the video flow, if you like, the camera and editing work, which really made the video incredibly compelling. Now, more recently I saw Tamara listed as one of the exploration divers on Robbie Schmitter's all-female cave exploration team for the Xunaan-Ha Expedition in 2021. I thought this was a great initiative, bringing together a group of great divers with disparate experiences and skill sets to complete a new exploration project under the guidance of an experienced cave explorer. In this episode, Tamara and I discuss how she got into diving and how it became her life's passion, her travels to various parts of the world to train, work, and develop as a diver and instructor. And then we get into her work at ProTech Mexico with Patrick and Kim and the ProTech team, and how she set up her own diving brand, Dive Like a Ninja. Of course, we chat about her upcoming Xunaan-Ha Expedition project with Robbie Schmitter. Have a look in the podcast notes for how you can support the team in this awesome project. All this and much more on this episode of Speaking Side Mount. So we are recording. Tamara, welcome to Speaking Side Mount.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Awesome,
it.
awesome. Well, great to meet you in person. I first saw you, now let me tell you when that was. About 5 years ago, you put up a really excellent side mount skills video. I think it was at Planet Scuba in Mexico. And It wasn't that long after in fact, I did my cave training in Mexico in 2013. So I was always scouring the internet for good skills videos, and I thought it was awesome. So it was great to see your smiling face on that. I loved the editing of that too. I thought it was very cool to the music. So that's one that sticks in my mind. And
Katie's amazing.
Was that Katie Fraser did that?
Yeah, so we kind of knew each other from Egypt and decided to move to Mexico and do this. Cave diving was new for her and wanted to practice more. So we teamed up on a few videos, but she does amazing. So
yes,
indeed.
Indeed. So before we jump too far ahead, tell us a little bit about how you got into diving.
Sure. I have always been into travel, and obviously water has been a big part of my life. And I'd been traveling to Thailand for a couple years, just solo back in, I guess, like 2007, 8, 9. And I met a bunch of dive masters and divers there, and I'd been snorkeling a bunch there, and I never really had proper opportunity to go diving and give it a go, mainly because I couldn't actually get a dive medical in Australia. Many of the doctors there were a little bit hesitant because I'd said that I had it was mild asthma as a child. So they were just giving me sort of, there's like case files of things that could go wrong as a diver with asthma. So no one really did a proper test with me, and I kind of just put the whole diving idea to the side. But finally, I went back to Thailand in 2009 or 10, and again, I met some divers there, and I decided just to give it a go. And I loved it, clearly, and was pretty comfortable. So I was like 2 days later back in Australia, and I went to a dive medical, a proper dive medic. He gave me all the tests, and finally gave me the all clear that I actually just grown out of my asthma and it shouldn't be a problem. So from then, I booked a one-way ticket straight to Thailand.
It's nothing like going into the deep end, huh?
Yeah, no, totally. And, one DSD, I think I spent a total of like 50 minutes or an hour or something underwater. And I just emailed the manager in Koh Tao and I just said, hey, I want to do my open water to dive master, one-way ticket, boom. And I was there and got into it. So since 2010, I've really it's been my life and all that I've really done. So I stayed there for 3 to 4 years, just working as a recreational dive instructor. This is also where I started my technical diving. I did that as a dive master. I saw all the tech divers cruising around on my recreational dives, and I'm just thinking, man, they look so cool.
There's some pretty cool guys here as well. I know Eric Brown is there and a few others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Eric was actually my IT for my tech side mount in Egypt. So we go back a little bit. Yeah, there's some really good crew in Thailand, in Koh Tao, and I think it does get this sort of tainted name because it is quite a factory. Like there's, divers pumping out of there, instructors coming out of there, and of course the level does vary, but if you do some research and you find the good ones, then of course you can certainly produce some good divers and instructors. So anyway, I've met a bunch of really, really good instructors there, which now I do link up with. And I got stuck there, like many people do. It's a tiny little island vibe. I can dive up to 4 or 5 times a day. It was just, it was easy.
Pretty fun environments, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sun and sand all day, every day. And it's a laid back vibe. And that's kind of all that I ever really wanted to do, is live on a tiny little island and be able to go in the water every day. So that was kind of a dream come true. And yeah, as I said, I got stuck there. I did a bunch of my technical training there, my cave course I did there in the mainland. And from there, I was kind of seeking a little bit more depth in my technical training, and the Gulf of Thailand is fairly limited. So I did up to extended range, which gets me down to like 55 meters. I'm training with 4 cylinders. I did that in back mount, actually. I Tech 45 and side mount with the rest in back mount. And then I decided to go to Dahab in Egypt and pursue my trimix courses and do more of my tech instructor stuff there with Eric and some of the guys there at Team Blue Immersion at that time. Aaron Agumson as well, he was one of my instructors. And then I spent about a year there in 2014, and then I don't know, I just kind of started to get these cave photos like infiltrating into my feed, and then planted a seed in my mind, and I really wanted to get back to cave diving. So then Katie and I kind of made the decision to let's just leave this expensive trimix diving behind and let's get into the cave. So ended up here in Mexico, and I started first diving with her at Planet Scuba in 2014, end of 2014, and I lived up there for a year and then moved down to Tulum, kind of a good base for cave diving, which has now been my life since then. But like many of the other dive instructors here, we do tend to work seasonally. The Christmas period, winter is a busy time, so usually here for that sort of September, October through to March, April time, and then see if we can get a job elsewhere and scoot off. So I've done a season over in Italy, spent some time back in Australia building Dive Like a Ninja and teaching there, and just some other fun cave diving trips around. But yeah, based here, and that kind of, I guess brings me to now.
Exactly. And it's an amazing lifestyle that you can build around diving, isn't it? This ability to travel. I mean, obviously we're so tied down at the moment, and I know it must be driving you crazy what's going on right now, but this will pass. In the lifestyle, while there isn't necessarily a lot of money in it, it's just an amazing thing to be able to experience the world and go to these beautiful places and share diving with other people.
It really is. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to do this and float around the world and dive in amazing places. You know, I know I do feel fortunate often. I have these kind of like moments of just reality hitting, and it's a cool thing, but of course, yeah, there's not a lot of money in it, but that's what passion does. It keeps you in it. So yeah, it's pretty quiet here also, of course, with COVID-19. So there's not a lot of work, but then there's a whole lot of time to go out and do more cave diving practice and stuff from in the jungle, far away from other people. So I'm lucky here with that, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, exactly. Having that on your doorstep. I heard you say a moment ago, and I watched your interview with Robbie Schmitter that you did on Instagram with him, and you talked about doing a business course to set up Dive Like a Ninja. And like him, I just love that name. I think it's awesome. But it is important. The business side of diving is where a lot of people, I think, let themselves down, as a lack of it. Because I come from a business background, right? So I spent a life in corporate world building software companies in America, and came to professional diving a little later when I thought there's only a certain amount of life left and I want to do some of that stuff. But the business side is important, right? So tell us a bit about what you learned and how you've applied that to diving.
So that happened very sort of randomly. I mean, of course, there's social media that helps with starting a business, and that's kind of where my basis was. I had a Facebook page, Dive Like a Ninja, that I just wanted to keep in touch with my clients. But yeah, then I found out there's this awesome government-funded course that you can learn how to do it properly, get it registered, and set up all the funding and just all the little bits here and there that then I was able to get it functioning in Melbourne. So the academic side was, I learned a lot, and it came, I guess, I had a lot of the material kind of ready to go. I had a logo, I had a good idea of how I wanted to build my business and what the focus would be, so that it came together fairly easily. That was something that I found that was just completely necessary in Australia, or especially in Melbourne, where I'm from, is that you don't work as a full-time dive instructor. Like everyone that I know there, they have a normal job Monday to Friday, and they dive on the weekends. So to earn enough to survive and do that was impossible. So that's why I thought, okay, let's build it and create a larger audience and just do it properly. So that was just necessary for living there. But in this diving industry, of course, you meet lots of people from all around the world, and so you create these good connections. So you can kind of bounce around a little bit. But yeah, Dive Like a Ninja has just been, again, like a good foundation to put myself out there and tell people what I can do, and then, hopefully seek me. But certainly learnt a lot. I needed that. It was something that I wanted to do for a long time. So I was happy, and it was government funded. Bam.
Love it. And the imagery around being a ninja in the water is, I think, really apt, especially for the higher levels of technical diving, cave diving, or even the foundations of any diver, is this concept of being stealthy or almost being precise and being where you want to be. Just talk about that imagery and how it applies to your diving.
Well, that was exactly where that came from. Jeffrey Glenn, who was my IT and Kotal chopper, and I was on the boat one day, and after the dive, but underwater, I saw him on his rebreather, all in black, and just like looking 10 times better than anyone else in the water. And I just saw like stealthy, like he looks like he really knows what he's doing, and it just looked good. And so that's kind of where the idea came from. And it is one of those things that if you look good underwater, you tend to be doing the right thing, right? You can hover well, movements are precise, and how you're doing what you want to do, and you want to be in the position that you need to be in. And this applies to every moment in cave diving. So that's something that I'm training every dive here, and I try to help student divers get to that point too, which can be missed a lot in some places around the world and some training, but it's those core fundamentals of positioning, buoyancy, and trim and these things it helps. It's just of course, it creates a safer diver. So that's been the real sort of driving force and where the name came from for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned being a safer diver, and I 100% agree with that. And the other thing I'd add on, which perhaps some people miss, is how much fun it is to dive when you're completely in control of yourself. And I contrast that with when you're beginning in diving, obviously everything's kind of foreign and you're learning, what does my lung volume do and what does my equipment do and how do I control all of that? But once that becomes unconscious and then once you learn to dive the right way, and as you say, a lot of places in the world don't even really understand what that is. It's only when you see somebody and you go, oh my God, can you really dive like that?
Yeah.
That you understand that it's possible. Mm-hmm. And then once you start to achieve that standard, I find it's such a pleasurable experience to be able to do it and to be able to role model it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it changes your diving experience because then you're not paying attention to those things and you really can be where you need to be. I mean, it applies to all diving, but especially in cave diving when you have an environment that if you're not diving in a safe way like that and using good buoyancy, trim, and propulsion, then you can create quite a hazard for everyone else that's in your team or just in the cave. So it's absolutely just necessary.
Mm-hmm. So at Dive Like a Ninja, you teach a bunch of different courses. So tell us a bit about what you're physically doing there.
Yeah, so I've been working for ProTech dive centers here, and my primary job is taking cabin tours, so certified divers into the cabin environment, which is like the entry to a cave, but I also guide cave divers, so on 2 cylinders or up to stage divers, and DPV as well, so everything in the cenotes, basically. I think I've done maybe 5 ocean dives since I'm here. I love it, but it's just it's not a focus here. So a lot of guiding and mainly side mount courses or PSAI have a course, ABC. It's basically the fundamentals, buoyancy, trim, propulsion, and things like that. So that's what I'm usually doing. I just finished my cabin instructor, so I've taught a couple so far.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a big...
It is.
It's kind of a milestone. It wasn't easy. It took me a long time, but I actually formed it like that. I wanted to get as much assisting and co-teaching in as possible before I got the tick from Patrick.
And that's a big tick, isn't it?
Yeah, it felt pretty big, to be honest.
Yeah.
So now it's just, practicing it. And of course, every course, it's like you're slowly like fine tuning your way. So it's kind of only just begun, that's for sure. But I also do some recreational courses too. We have a recreational section to Pro Tech, which is Pro Rec. So I do like deep specs and specialty courses and just recreational stuff as well. So I'm trying to be the jack of all trades here.
Yeah. One of the things I learned when I was in Gozo, I loved my time there. I was teaching, but when I first started there, I was the new boy, if you like. So I got all the recreational guiding and so on, which was okay. I thoroughly enjoyed that, had a great time. But then I got my first tech diver guide to do, and it happened to be a fantastic diver. And he and I just got on like a house on fire, and I guided him for a week. Cool. And it was just so cool. And he gave great feedback on me, which meant that I then got more tech guiding to do. And so from then on, I was pretty much tech guiding, which was so much fun. But it is really awesome, the divers you meet. And it is sometimes a little stunning, the quality of the people you're guiding as well. I was really impressed with a lot of the people who came through in terms of their diving ability and skills, and made it so fun.
Yeah, for sure. It does vary a little bit, but generally the divers that we do get have certainly good skills. There are some sort of, if you hear where they've done training, you can kind of put like 2 and 2 together, but of course you don't want to assume anything. You just kind of take go with an easy dive side always to start with and do sort of like a suss out part of the dive first. But generally, we get pretty good quality of divers coming through. It's always a learning curve for like both parties,
Yeah. And working with Patrick and Kim at ProTech must be amazing.
Yeah, totally. I look up to both of them massively. Their experience is massive. I mean, for both of them have slightly different methods or styles, I should say. But both of them I really look up to. I like the way that they work in that way. And then like in terms of exploration, I mean, yeah, it's cool just to sort of hear them talk about. I'm just like there with my ear open, you know, listening in to anything that's said. And we have a group chat as well. And some of the conversation that goes through there is just, it's like this never ending cycle of like cool information and different perspectives on looking at different aspects, like free breather. Of course, Patrick's like crazy about the Sidewinder, super good about it. Now I'm constantly learning a lot from them, and I really look up to them. So I'm stoked that they're my bosses. It's a cool thing to have them, like, you know, on the end of my thumb through a message. So that's cool.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, I had a similar thing when I was working with Tom Steiner and Gozo. It was just, and then just having people like Tom and Audrey around where you can watch them in the water. And I developed so much, a lot through the conversation for sure, but a lot just by watching them in the water and trying to emulate what they were doing. And actually the term ninja, I used to apply that to Audrey a lot. I think you've dived with her, right? That whole thing of being really precise, and just loved it and learned so much just by being immersed in that and hanging with them and talking and diving. And
she is a ninja. I had that thought too when I was over there in Gozo diving with her. Like, wow, I don't know. Yeah, she's stealthy. So and that's it, like through conversation, but just even just being in the water and watch how they dive, and always picking little bits, like, little things to work on. So
yeah, and you mentioned the different styles between Kim and Patrick as well, because I think even that is a great thing. I think if everyone's kind of homogenous, you don't learn as much. So I imagine you can sort of look at them and say, hey, which parts of their styles suit you? And you can just grab the best parts. And
yeah, exactly. That's the best part. And that's what's come through just a lot of assisting as well, as I tried to, well, that's why you do assist, right? So you see parts that work clearly for some instructors, and you just like try and pick little bits and then slowly put it all together and then create your own style. But I find that really valuable, listening and watching to Patrick, and then Kim's version also. Yeah, I'm slowly like, trying to build my Kim Patrick, web. But it's very valuable. And same with the other guys that I work with, they're super brainiacs and very knowledgeable, and it's cool to see their styles also sort of changing and developing. So that's why I'm still here. I mean, I don't plan on going anywhere, because it's just like I'm constantly learning new things. So
it's like being in a dive university almost, isn't it? Except mega practical though, right? You get the theory for sure in the classroom, but then it's all about putting it in the water and the practice. And yeah, I agree with you. So I remember, you learn something from every diver you dive with, and being around other great divers just rubs off on you. And I think the other thing, you talk about styles, but eventually it becomes Tamara's style, right? You make what you've got of theirs your own, and then you put your own into it and make it something greater than all the sum of the parts. So yeah, fantastic. It's a very, very cool thing. So this is all about side mount diving, this podcast. Give us some of your thoughts on side mount diving. Obviously, there's lots of different styles around the world, and because you've traveled, I'm sure you've had an opportunity to see some of that as well. But where do you see side mount diving, and how does it fit into what you do?
Good question. Well, I mean, as you say, I've moved around a little bit, and many places do dive slightly different. Like, for example, modular valves. I know the guys in Sardinia, they're using just left-hand valves, and they position them slightly differently for their style of diving. So the way that I dive now is how I teach, and I like to think the idea behind it is that it works for sort of any environment. So for cold water or for warm water that we have here, dry gloves, no dry gloves, and just having everything accessible and streamlined basically. So yeah, I mean, the vision here is just to kind of keep it as simple as possible and less dangly bits, which, tends to be things that come from the north. And Florida, we get many Floridian divers with a different point of view, but, it's their thing. But again, like my focus is to keep it nice and simple. And here it's definitely the tool, I would say, for I mean, in terms of getting to the water's edge, it's easier to carry one cylinder rather than the two back down. I mean, that's a massive advantage of having the independent cylinders. I find it a lot more comfortable. I moved to side mount because I didn't want the valve in the back of my head anymore. So in terms of freedom, this is, you know, we all know that that's a massive advantage also. I think it's definitely growing for sure. I mean, I did my course in 2013 or something then, and I did it on the Razor. And all that I knew about it really was like Steve Bogart's. I just kind of nerded out to all of his videos and stuff. So I think the audience was fairly limited then, but now, of course, it's like all of my clients that I get, I would say almost all have been side mount divers, new to side mount or already side mount divers wanting to get a new unit and have it sized and so on. So it's definitely something that's booming, and I see no problem with that. Of course, if you use extra stages, a third stage on especially like a female of my size, it becomes quite cumbersome. So it's a tool, but for the style of diving that I'm doing here, which is not deep and not like triple stage dives, then it's the ultimate tool. So it's a good thing. Spread the word, but of course it needs to be done. Having a course done by an instructor that knows what they're doing and they can make the course or make the equipment fit well so that you're not ending the course feeling like frustrated for bungeeing your cylinders on or whatever. You know, it should be done so that it's like a good learning curve and not frustrating in any way. So now we have a lot more side mount instructors out there in the field. So I think that is slowly happening. But yeah, it's growing and it's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we're all part of that. Obviously being there with Patrick, the inventor of the X-Deep system. And, you know, I know Patrick a while ago put some videos out where you guys were actually doing fitting and all that sort of thing, which the X-Deep is one of the easier ones to fit for sure, but it's always a bit of a challenge to make sure that you get the right fit and everything.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, having him go through the features of the unit, how to set it up, I mean, it's coming from pretty much the inventor's mouth. So then, you know, I just kind of regurgitate that, and it makes my life easier putting it on a person and knowing exactly what I should change first, how it all works together. I mean, when we get clients in here, if they get a unit off the wall, I can set it up pretty close to where it needs to be in like 45 minutes. Which I know the Razor, for example, I bought one and tried to set it up, and it was just a bit of it was difficult to say the least. So yeah, the XD, the features make it very easy, but it's also like you need to know where things need to go as well, right? Like tension of the bungees and all that sort of stuff. It's definitely my favorite unit. I've tried quite a few, and in terms of adjustability, comfort, the dump valve in the center, I love that, being able to use both hands. That became an issue for me and with the Razor on one side, so it's the best of the bunch, I would say.
Yeah, but we're somewhat biased, but then that bias is born out of a lot of dives inside Mount Hay, so yeah, fair enough. One thing I'm really keen to do at some stage once this whole virus thing is behind us is pop over and meet up with Patrick and do some Sidewinder training with him, because I trained with Ed Sorensen, which was just amazing. I know Patrick has a different style than Ed, and so I'm a little bit like the discussion with Kim and Patrick about different styles. I think from my point of view, it would be really interesting to look at the differences around the way that Patrick dives it, particularly with the Stealth 2.0 tech and how he's configured that, because I've got Ed's mods on my one, which I like. Nothing wrong with them. In fact, I really like them. I love the shoulder dump and all that sort of thing, because I definitely can't reach the butt dump now, which is a challenge, but I think Patrick has a solution to that somewhere. So we'll figure it out. Maybe I have to grow my arms longer or stretch them or something. But has Patrick got you on the Sidewinder yet?
Yes, yeah. I did my crossover not too long ago. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it's very comfortable to get, like, easy. I don't hate to say that, but it was easier than any other rebreather that I've tried to just be in trim. The work of breathing is great. And then putting it together with your harness that you already have that's fitted, It's like a clip, feed it through the back, and it's good to go. It's the easiest thing ever. And, it's not resizing anything. It's literally you just clip the thing to the harness and you get in and go. So that's Patrick's way. He did his course also with Ed. So he had some feedback from that. Patrick's version is definitely like just keeping it like as minimal and as easy as possible. And he's slowly, there's little changes here and there. Like Kim just did the crossover. We did it together actually. And Kim's a bit of a brainiac for equipment as well. So he's added in little bits and then he shows the team and they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, Kim. And it's like learning and sort of fine tuning together. I have a few good questions for Patrick.
For sure, because I'm doing a lot of that myself in my garage, so I'm in there kind of making little tweaks and little hose changes and things that I like and don't like. And it's an iterative thing and I'm getting it really, really close now. I mean, the biggest thing here has been, because I do a lot of boat diving, so it's quite different from the way that you guys are diving. Yeah. And to be honest, the Sidewinder, it's a great rebreather for ocean diving as well. But I think if you had to benchmark it somewhere or pigeonhole it, it's definitely a great cave tool. And so that sort of diving really lends itself towards what the Sidewinder has. And I'm taking it out of that environment to somewhere where back mount would be fine. But the truth is, as I've been doing my little mods and my little changes, it's getting easier and easier for me. And the biggest thing I had to do was just find smaller cylinders to manage on a boat. Using 12-litre steels on a boat and trying to don everything and get in and out of the water was challenging. But I've got some 7-litre ones now. I can even try some 5.6-litre aluminiums as well. And, now it's super easy, so now I've gone from being harder than the back mount guys back to being easier again, which is what side mount should really be about, is being this ultimate flexibility. So I'm so enjoying figuring that out for myself. But being in somewhere where there's a whole bunch of KISS Sidewinder divers all using the same equipment, all using an X-Deep harness, you just can't replicate that anywhere, right? So it looks like I'll have to come to you to figure some of this stuff out and see what you got.
Yeah, come down. We'll come over. Yeah, well, that's kind of that can be an issue is boat diving and figuring out how it would work for that particular boat. Yeah, as you said, in terms of cave diving here, it's the ultimate tool. The boys here are heading out exploring very often, and they're doing dives of 5-6 hours. Which you clearly wouldn't be able to do in open circuit, and small cave. So if that's where you want to go, then it is. It's the absolute, tool for that. So that's on the horizon, but I've got a little bit of practice to do to get to that point.
For sure. And in fact, what I'd probably be doing is, if I don't get a chance to do it beforehand, I'd do CCR cave on it, because along with doing Trimix, they're the two next steps for me. But I might end up having to go to Mount Gambier first because it's closer, and maybe that's the only place I can travel for a while. Yeah. Have you dived the caves in Australia?
Yes, I have. So I went home to Australia for about a year and a bit. That's when I started the business course and that. So I had a couple friends there that were cave divers as well, and we tried to do monthly trips over, because from Melbourne it was a 5-hour drive. Yeah, so it would be like a weekend away, stay in the cabin and get in the truck and cruise off. But I loved it, actually. It's colder water.
I was going to say cold water for you.
Gloves again. Yeah. Oh, anything like... yeah, totally, no. I'm a wuss. I'm useless in cold water. So
you don't need dry gloves.
Some of us do. I'm really quite useless with that. But I mean, anything colder than... there I think it's 18 degrees or...
Oh, no, it's 14, 15 a lot of the time, and certainly in the winter. Yeah, which is pretty cool, but I'm not very good in cold water either, but I just wear the Fourth Element 3mm, which amazingly are really warm gloves. They're really easy, but it's different caves to Mexico for sure, aren't they?
Yeah, completely different. Tank Cave, for example, you go down this little shaft and you kind of saying goodbye to these cows that are just staring you down, go down the hole into this little dry cave. Yeah, the passages are super different. There's no speleothems really. Tank Cave I'm talking about in particular is big passages. Navigation is different there. The lines are quite different. I liked the difference to Mexico. It's kind of refreshing. But they were cool little weekends away. Yeah, I'll make that a trip every time I'm back there. So have you been diving there?
I did one trip there last year and did the advanced cave crossover there, which you need to do if you're a full cave diver from somewhere else, which I thoroughly enjoyed. A lot of people are quite insulted by it, but I actually thought it was just what a great challenge to be able to do, and had the great fortune to do it with JDZ, John Della Zuana, who's a bit of a, one of the wet mules, a bit of a cave legend. And certainly he dives.
That's right.
Yeah. He certainly dives very differently to Mexico style, that's for sure. So it was quite interesting to watch these guys work. But what a gentleman and what an absolute champion guy. The challenge of actually doing the pressure test, that was something I'd never done before in terms of buddy breathing through restrictions with masks off. It was cool, no sense of realism about it. And that's not what it was about. It was about saying, if you're under pressure in a cave here, are you going to be able to get yourself out of it? And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And we hung out with the guys at Reef to Ridge there and did some really, really neat diving all around the area. They gave us lots of samples. So we did a bunch at Tank Cave, but we did Engelbrecht. We obviously did Killsby Sinkhole and the Pines and a few others. I had a lot of fun and just love Tank Cave because it's different. It's different to Mexico. It's different to a lot of the caves you see, but the navigation, the alphanumeric way that they lay that out, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah.
In terms of learning the cave.
Yeah, they're making it easier. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I just thought it was just so smart and so well thought through. Yeah, so we're going down C passage and we'll go to C12 and then we'll jump to G passage and we'll go from G to H to I to J. And so in terms of the way the human brain works, knowing that this is your dive plan, and then having it written out and then having all of these navigation waypoints. Obviously, it doesn't relieve you of the responsibility of observing the cave and knowing the cave because heaven forbid you lost a line. If you're just relying on that, then that's a problem. But I just thought it was really impressive and so much fun. And we were able to achieve a lot over, I think we did 8 dives. We were able to achieve a hell of a lot over 8 dives in terms of exploring the cave because of that navigation system. So, yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, it's not often that, we have complex caves here, obviously, but it's not often that you do like 8, 9, 10 navigations on a dive. That was fairly new for me, but yeah, having that numerical thing does help for sure. Yeah, we'll head back there. There's a lot to see, and that's it. Even after 8 dives, there's still quite a bit to see there. So.
Tons. Yeah, you have this little training program after you've done the crossover before you're allowed to, I don't know what they allow you to do, but you had to do the first 8 dives and you had to do a certain number of the passages. And then once you'd done them, you're allowed to go out to the next part of the cave and do some more. And then, so there was this kind of progressive plan of you becoming a CDAA diver as well, which I thought was, it's quite restrictive and very prescriptive. But at the same time, there's some logic behind it for sure, making sure that everyone's safe and that you're learning the cave in the right way. And so, I enjoyed it. In fact, I was supposed to be back there about now. Of course, all our travel is screwed again, but I'll definitely get back there if we get the Australasian bubble thing going on. It's up to Victoria, though, to sort themselves out.
Yeah.
You know that, though, right?
Doesn't sound like they're in a good way at the moment.
Your family's there?
Yeah, my parents are there. They're down in Port Arlington, down in the Bay, but I think now they can leave the house, I think.
Yeah.
I think they've been going between, I guess, at stage 3 and 4. But yeah, so my dad's getting fed a lot because my mom's just going mad about cooking. So he's kind of hanging to get out of the house. So I think they can leave the house now. But it's such a weird.
Yeah, it's been tough for them.
Time.
And look, this virus is really hard on everybody. And Australia was doing amazingly well, and then that outbreak happened in Victoria, which is kind of sad. We've had a similar thing here in New Zealand. We were doing amazing. We had nearly 3 months of no virus, and then unfortunately kind of snuck out of one of the quarantine facilities, and we had an outbreak in our Pacifica community, which is tough because they're quite vulnerable to it, and partly because of the way they socialise in church and everything. And so that's grown to about 100, but we have it contained. So hopefully today, in fact, we find out whether we can reduce the restrictions again, because they have that, we think, under control. But it is a tricky thing, and I feel quite fortunate that we have it somewhat under control compared to other parts of the world. Again, we were diving like freely, like it was just like it was before, apart from no international travel, and now we're somewhat restricted again. Yeah, tough.
Mm-hmm. New Zealand did pretty good.
We've got a great leader. Our Prime Minister's amazing. We have some geographical things as well. I mean, we're an island a long way away from everywhere else, and we were able to watch Italy in particular and Spain and see what happened there and think, crap, that could be us. So they made some really solid decisions early on in the growth of the pandemic here, which was we have to shut down, and we shut down pretty much fully. The other thing with Kiwis, we're a bit weird. We trust the government. Other places in the world, there's not a lot of trust there. It wouldn't have mattered who it was. If they said, hey, you guys have to lock down, we go, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll do that. And there's a bit of resistance this time around, and that doesn't go on forever. But it did mean that we had a lot of compliance, which meant that, we were able to get it under control. And, I contrast that with America, for instance, where, you can't tell those guys to lock down. They're never going to do it. So not everywhere can do what we did, and not everywhere had the leadership that we had as well. So I think we're quite fortunate in that respect.
Yeah,
and hopefully more diving soon, huh?
Different story here. But yeah, I think the Mexican mentality is kind of just to do what you want anyway. So, everyone's taking their precautions that they need to do, but different mentality. That's all. We're safe here.
I wish you well, and hopefully everything comes right soon. Now, I did want to ask you, I mentioned Robbie Schmitter before, and you've been invited to be on the Xunaan-Ha Expedition with him, which is just, again, congratulations on that. I mean, it's no small thing. He's one of the legends. I've been trying to get him on Speaking Side Mountain. So if you see Robbie, tell him I'm tracking him down. And I had Toddy have a chat with him, I think. For sure. Yeah. I don't know if Toddy was supposed to talk to him on my behalf, and I don't know if it happened or whether he's been too busy, but we'll definitely get him on sometime if he's up for it. But what an amazing thing to be involved in. And tell us a bit about it, how it happened, and what you're hoping is going to happen next February.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It definitely kind of came out of the blue for me. Robbie was over in Orlando for one of the dive shows. I can't remember what. And a bunch of the girls that are on the expedition were there, and the idea came up as a sort of when they were just sitting around having a chat. So I wasn't at the show, and then I got the invitation a little bit later. So I think it's a great idea, actually. I mean, we're all pretty experienced divers, and I think the idea of getting us together, and we all have slightly different skill sets, but having us all together for this project is going to be great. And I mean, the whole idea is to kind of raise awareness about this sort of freshwater source that we have here, the aquifer, and how important it is to the communities here. And of course, I mean, besides the conservation side, there's exploring these new caves and caverns cenotes that we have here. So he's sourced a couple already, put them to the side, and so we'll all go in there and work together to explore and survey. But again, it's kind of like getting a good team together, seeing us work together as a team, but also mainly pointed toward the conservation and learning more about the aquifer and how important it is here, because of course it's, Tulum is booming. Moyil, just south of here, has a lot of cave there as well. And I mean, the area, there's a lot of construction going on. And if you don't know what is beneath, then, how can you protect it? So that's kind of the key idea there, is to build awareness about it.
Yeah, I did a couple of episodes on Somos Los Cenotes with Philip Lehman and Natalie and Vince, and it is so cool what they're doing in terms of trying to protect that area. And you're right. I mean, it's always been the way with the ocean as well. What's out of sight is out of mind, and it doesn't matter. It's this limitless resource, and if I can't see it, it doesn't matter. And of course, pumping crap literally into the aquifer is such a damaging thing, and building without control on top of it as well. Absolutely. So, I compliment you on the awareness side, and hopefully that's successful, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's through projects like this, so Somos Los Cenotes by Philip and those boys, again, just building awareness for the locals, as well as like all the businesses that are trying to do these massive developments on top of the cave systems here. Like, it needs to be put out there to the bigger audience so that we can sort of help protect it a little bit. Yeah, and I mean, it's quite evident of the condition of the reef here is changing as well, because of course, whatever is poured into the cenotes ends up going, through the mangroves and out into the ocean, and we're seeing a lot of bleaching going on. So that's like a clear indicator that like we need to change something. there's a couple dive sites here that you would dive. Robbie's got a bunch of stories about that when you would see waste in the water. So again, everyone needs to know about this and how we can protect it. That's the idea. So hopefully we can put that point across.
Am I right that most of the team are relatively new to exploration?
Yeah, so Julia and I, we both live here in Tulum. We've been doing a little bit of exploration already. I've been going out with Robbie the last few days, which has been like super cool. It's so great. And I learned a lot already just in our days together. The other girls, as I understand, have some exploration or more surveying and mapping of wrecks, shipwrecks and cold water diving. So it's slightly different skill set, but they're all cave divers, clearly. So I think that would be a cool thing that he's going to do. Robbie's going to do a workshop for us and how to actually lay good line and how to survey. I think we're going to map as well, which is a whole undertaking in itself, but how to actually get the line in and have data come back to be put into software. So for the girls, some of them it'll be a new experience, and for Julia and I it'll be some really good practice and there's still some learning to do for sure. So
yeah, it's a really cool thing. There's a few of these sort of projects going on around the world. I know Pete Mesley was involved in one in Indonesia as well. And so and I think it's just awesome because there is I was talking to Victor Tovar about this earlier this morning on another interview, which is there's a clear distinction between being a cave diver and being an explorer. And I mean, there's at the sharp pointy end of exploration, the Patrick Woodmans, the Robbie Schmitters, the Brian K. Cooks, and so on. I mean, the list is really long, but there's actually not that many who are really involved in the pointy end of exploration. And most of us are just cave divers. And so we're following someone else's line and we're enjoying the environment and we're doing some restrictions or whatever, but we're not really going somewhere where nobody's been before. And so this exploration thing is definitely another step beyond that. And to become an explorer, of course, you need to take your baby steps along that path as well. So doing it under the supervision, if you like, or with the support of somebody else is just an amazing experience and a great way to get started, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is like from my experience, which is minimal compared to the guys that I work with, but it's a test of sort of course, you're just your fundamental skills, but like all in all, just awareness, because you're going into new cave, and if you're in open circuit percolation, suddenly, you can find yourself in a almost no visibility situation pretty quickly. So this is like the test of sort of everything that you've learned and still having good awareness, being able to lay a line that makes sense in new cave, and you're taking in all this information, it's to do it well, like kudos. I mean, that's the hardest thing. So yeah, it's definitely small steps to get to that point of being really good. But Robbie's there, it's not they're not trust me dives clearly, but it's nice to, he has like this amazing, I mean, when I've been diving with him lately, he's just like this fish that just sees passages through the cave. Like he's just so, his intelligence, cave diving intelligence, I don't know if that's a thing, but I mean, he reads
I think it
the
is.
cave
Yeah.
very, very well. And that's, how he has so much experience and has laid so much, or seen so many new caves. So having him there, his feedback and, his tips and tricks, it's kind of invaluable. So I'm super excited. I think it's going to be great. Good group of girls and out in the jungle for a little bit. So I think it's going to be pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. And clearly, this is something you guys really want to do. It's not the greatest time for doing this at the moment. The whole dive industry is depressed with coronavirus. And I'm assuming you guys self-fund through this whole thing. So cave exploration typically isn't funded by some other higher authority somewhere, is it? You're paying for it yourself.
Nope.
Yeah. And I think there's a GoFundMe for it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, as you say, exploration is all self-funded. I mean, there's petrol, there's lime, there's arrows, there's gas involved, so it adds up. So for the project, of course, the girls are coming from Europe, so there is certainly some funding that is needed. So yeah, Robbie set up a GoFundMe. Yeah, any little bit would be helpful, and that would just, of course, we have like many cylinders going into the jungle. So porters, of course, we'll be carrying some ourselves, but we'll need the help of some others as well. So yeah, for this, we do need an extra helping hand. So yeah, check out.
Okay, well, I'll grab the link off you for the GoFundMe and I'll put that in the podcast notes. So we'll see if we can help out through that. And just for anyone listening out there, this sounds like an amazing project to support. There's the conservation side, there's the growth of a great bunch of divers side. And again, Robbie's very, very well known in cave exploration in Mexico in particular. So I think this is an awesome project to be supporting from virtually every aspect, including conservation. So if you are able to give a little bit, then I'll put the GoFundMe up and we'll see if we can help out a little bit there. Tamara, it's been amazing. It's been awesome to meet you, and I'm genuine about wanting to come out and do some Sidewinder diving with ProTech there. So if I can make that happen over the next couple of years, once we're able to travel again. It's great to hear an Aussie accent or something vaguely from this part of the world. Most people won't know, but there's a clear difference between the Australian and New Zealand accents, but you guys probably won't be able to hear it.
Clear difference.
Cool, yeah. But yeah, so nice to meet you, and congratulations on everything you're doing in Mexico and what you're about to achieve. So yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much, Steve. Yeah, nice to meet you too. And yeah, I'll see you here at some point when the world opens up again. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers, Tamara.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did. I really enjoyed talking to Tamara. As I said, it was great to hear another Southern Hemisphere accent, especially from Australia, a very close cousin of us here in New Zealand, I guess you could say. Again, thanks to XDeep for supporting this podcast. It means so much to what I'm doing. And of course, to all of our patrons, thank you for your support. Again, without you, we would not be able to make this podcast. So I'm incredibly grateful for everything that you do to support. I've got some great episodes coming up over the coming months, so look out for those. And again, wherever you are, be well, be safe, and I wish you happy diving. If you're not diving now, I hope you're back in the water really soon. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next episode. You've been listening to Speaking Sidemount from www.sidemountpros.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe and consider leaving us a 5-star review. If there's something you'd like us to cover on the show, then let us know via our Facebook page listed in the podcast notes. Thanks again, and we look forward to you joining us on our next episode of Speaking Sidemount.